Alright, so I have my paper. I have a piece of carbon paper. So there's a variety of different ways to approach getting your base image set. If I was doing something like flowers or a landscape or something like that, I would draw it freehand because flowers are sort of soft and fuzzy. And here comes the cat. So I'll let the cat explore around while there's no paints or other wet things so that the cat gets it out of their system. So if I was drawing flowers or trees or something like that, then I would just do it freehand because it's my own interpretation of what the scene looks like. But with this involving very specific angles and very straight angles, I'm going to use carbon paper so that I trace it more cleanly. And if you are good with drawing straight lines and so on, you could certainly do it wholly by hand. In my case, my hands are a little shaky, so I'm going to use carbon paper. And if you want to, you could even use a ruler. So all of these techniques are up to you. Another technique you can use is to make grids on your source material. So you measure this off and design grids, and then on your destination material you draw the grids, and then now you have little squares and you can just draw the shapes that you see in each square, and that's another way to tackle this. In my case, I happen to have graphite paper, so I can use this to transfer the image onto the watercolor paper. If you don't have graphite paper and want to use this same technique, another thing that you could do is scribble on the back of this with pencil, and that'll do in essence the same thing. It'll put a layer of graphite on the back, and then when you go over and you draw on the front, it'll press that graphite down into your destination paper. So let's see how this works. So again, I am doing this on watercolor paper, so I can then watercolor it later. If you just want to practice sketching, then you can draw it freehand onto your sketching paper, or you can, if you want to, of course, sketch it freehand wholly onto anything. So if you're using graphite paper has a front and a back. So one side there is no graphite and the other side there is graphite, so you want to have the graphite side down because this will help you transfer the pressure of the pencil down into your destination area. So to clarify a little, when you're drawing, it's not like the pencil's magically going through the paper. It's more that the pencil is pressing, so you could use a stylus or anything else from that point of view. It's just pressing down, and when it's pressing, it's pushing the graphite off of the back side of the paper down onto your destination. So we'll just do one. I'm just going to do this rough because the idea is to show you the technique. But see how that has the image? So it's not that the pencil was drawing through there, it's that the pencil was pushing this graphite, and the graphite came out of the graphite paper down onto your destination. So normally you would want to do this very light, but I'm going to do it reasonably heavy so that you can see the marks. But if I was doing this for a watercolor project, I would do it light so that in the end you would not see the graphite lines. Although with watercolors, many people do like seeing the lines as a normal part of the watercolor image. So it is up to you. So again, I'm doing this fairly quickly. My purpose here is not to make a 12-hour long video, but to do a quick and easy to understand the concepts video that you could then use. And especially if you watch this later, you'll be able to pause and work on a given step and then start it up again and so on. So this is to show you the gist of how these different techniques work. So I would want to draw anything that I would think I would want guidance on. So like I don't need to draw in there because it's just white. You know, you could put maybe a little line showing you where the edge of the brickwork is. But the idea is to give you the basic shapes so you know where these basic objects are. Like where that shadow is, and where this line is. And like I said, if I went slow, I can make these lines straighter. But I'm just giving an idea of how this process works. And I don't want this stage to take 12 hours. There's a little house over here with a chimney in its middle, sort of hidden by the trees over on this side, with little windows. There we go. There's the foundation area. Yeah, you can see that my hands are a little shaky and they're not drawing exactly straight. But again, if you are drawing this and your aim is to make it perfectly straight, just take a little longer than I am. Use a ruler if you find a ruler is helpful. And you'll be able to get it exactly the way that you want to get it. So again, the two of the ways of getting carbon paper is one, you can get it from Michael's or Amazon or Joblot or all sorts of people. It's fairly inexpensive and you can keep reusing the same sheet over and over again for different projects, so it's not like you can only use it once and then it is done with. Or if you do not have access to carbon paper, you can just scribble on the back of the piece of paper that you're working from, and then that'll in essence put graphite on the back of the paper, and then when you do this tracing activity, it'll push the graphite down onto your destination. And again, in both cases, it's a substitute for drawing it freehand. So if you want to draw it freehand, you could do that. Alright, so we got the windows. There's columns over here. There's decorative work. In the tree, so we know about where the tree is. Anything else? Vern left this off because this house back here is a fairly late addition, so I think I will leave it off as well and just have there be bushes over there. Alright, I think those are all the key things. You know, there's a lot of other details. There's like the cross pieces on the window and so on, but I don't really need to draw those in with a pencil because I'm going to know that they're there when I get to the next stage. So it's always good to try to keep it in the same place and peek at it to make sure you haven't forgotten anything too keen that you want to add in, but that looks like it's pretty good. Alright, so there we go. Oh, Laura poked in to say, hey Laura. Laura. So Laura Senadella says that she painted this very church for the local phone book back in the days of phone books, so that's pretty cool. I'll have to take a look for hers and maybe add it in as a featured attraction when I make the final videos for this. So there you go. That's a way to make a base shape if you are doing this for a baseline for oil painting or acrylic painting or watercolor painting or collage or any sort of a number of other kinds of projects. And that's how you could do graphite paper or the transfer system for pretty much anything that you want to draw or paint. So this is a good technique to use. It's fairly easy to do, as you saw there, and it's very inexpensive to do. You have a starting image, and then you have the graphite paper, or that you do it with the graphite in the back. So let me know if you have any questions about that stage of it. And let's do a rough, oh, and I'll say that if you don't want to damage your painting or your initial drawing by drawing all over it with pencil, another technique you can use, and you can see that I use this for the Spencer project, is have tracing paper. So this is tracing paper of the Spencer Abbey, not an abbey, wasn't an abbey, well, the religious retreat, I think it is an abbey, out in Spencer, Massachusetts. And what I did in that case is I had a photo of the scene I wanted to do, and then I put the tracing paper down on top of it, and I traced it out into the tracing paper, and then I took the tracing paper and put it down on top of the graphite paper, and then I traced that. So that's a little longer of a process because you're doing the tracing twice. You're doing it once when you're tracing the image, and then once when you're tracing it down onto your destination. But the upside is that your original photo doesn't get all sorts of pencil marks all over it. So if you cared about this original photo for some reason, then you would think about using the tracing paper route. Oh, and it's my cat coming over to say hello again. But as I mentioned, it's good that the cat's over here right now and not when I've actually got wet paints on here for the cat to play with. Good kitty. Alright, go back in the tower and hang out and look at the birds. Alright, so you've got the image drawn. So now the question is, which kind of technique do we want to use on this first?